All right. So the topic for discussion is alcohol. Alcohol was something that I had decided I didn't really want to consume a lot of. I'm just going to turn that other device off. Camera in the background. So, yeah, when everyone else started drinking about 15, I didn't want to drink. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to drink. I play hockey. I want to go to the Olympics. It's not for me. You guys do it, but I don't want to do it. By the time I got to about 17, I was interested in girls and feeling awkward about it. I was interested at 15 as well, but I still made that other decision. And then everyone was getting drunk all the time. All my friends at school, they were always talking about it every weekend. They were always talking about going to parties. And so I fell into it. I started to do what they were doing, and I wasn't proud of it, but I got that buzz of alcohol that you get, and it's, as Jordan Peterson says, it's a hell of a drug. And so then it was an issue on and off for the next 5 years where I would drink excessively and then stop because I got clear on this is fucking not good for me. I'm not proud of it. A couple of times I got in serious trouble, lucky I didn't get arrested a bunch of times. Like, just when I would drink, I'd go to excess. The way that I go about training and business and things, like I did the same thing with alcohol. If I was going to do it, I was going to try and have the most. And once I'd had 5 or 6, then you seem like you're invincible, and the next 10 go down, faster than they should. And that was the story for me until really around about 23, I was like, yeah, this is just shit. This is stupid. I realized it was sort of part of some sort of system and indoctrination that I didn't really want to be a part of. I couldn't really articulate at that time, but, later it's become clearer with sort of the death cult that we live amongst at the moment. I had a feeling it was part of that then, that it was part of like bringing us down. And so I mostly stopped from 23, probably got drunk 5-10 times between 23 and 30, and then I maybe been drunk twice, maybe in the last decade at best. But I understand the challenge of it, and for me, the experience was finding something better to replace it. When I was clear on wanting to go to the Olympics, and I set clear goals around that, I trained really hard. I said, look, I'm not going to drink again until I make a state team, or this kind of stuff like that. That really helped me. And then I think the next big kick was like becoming a father. And we used to drink a bit sometimes, not really to excess, but we'd drink fairly regularly, just a couple of glasses of wine with my wife until babies came. And then that stopped it for my wife, and I pretty much just stopped drinking then. I have hardly drunk since I've been a father. So that's roughly my story so far. Keen to hear yours, Anthony, and open up this conversation within Uncommon Success about alcohol, about any drugs really. Like, there's been a lot of guys using other drugs as well. Not to judge, not to say everyone needs to not drink alcohol ever. I still had a few rakias when I came to Montenegro. I'm not someone who would say I never drink, but I say I don't get drunk. I can't remember the last time I had 3 drinks, so because it's been a long time, not because it was 50. Yeah, what's your story so far with it, Anthony?
Yeah, so my family's pretty much a bunch of drinkers. Like, even to this day, it was interesting. I stayed with the old boy in that, or me and my wife did, for 2 months before we left, and it really opened my eyes to when people say that, oh, I don't drink much, and then you're there and you actually are living with them and seeing what they're doing, and you realise, well, you are actually drinking a lot. You're down the pub every single day. It may be 2 or 3 pints or whatever it is, but it's every single day. And it's like, oh, I didn't go down the pub today, but you had like 3 or 4 glasses of wine, sitting around watching TV, and you see that accumulation over a 2-month period. It's a fair amount of alcohol. So for me, growing up, that was around, it's like I was pretty much from the age of 13, 14, was drinking. Got into nightclubs and pubs real early on. Like, I had a fake ID at 15 in nightclubbing, got all that sort of scene out the way pretty quick, and got into a lot of hairy scenarios, which, looking back on it, it's like, don't know how I'm here, to be honest. driving, no license, all that sort of stuff. Just idiotic shit that, at the time, yeah, it's fun. Sometimes, like you do a few things now and it's like you get that rush of things, but looking back, like it could have gone very sideways very quickly. So yeah, that's where my premise sort of come from. I was quite overweight, did brick paving, had back issues. So I used the alcohol, used drugs, weed, all that sort of stuff. And then as I got a bit older, I got into mining, and then within the mining culture, obviously you're doing long hours. People, they sort of have that social lubricant where they go down to the wet mess, and that's how they sort of conversate with each other. It's how you ingrain that team environment within alcohol itself, and that's how they associate with each other, because if it's not there, they sort of feel awkward to have a conversation outside of it. So yeah, when I was doing that was from 21 through to about 18 through to 22, and then came off the mine, got back, and then from that point got into drugs pretty heavy for a bit. At that point, I sort of had my crossroads where I nearly got both my knees taken out. My cousin sort of reversed their car and swung out real quick and pinned both my knees against the wall, but luckily it was a plastic fender, so sort of hyperflexed them, but didn't take them out. And from that point, I went cold turkey on everything for, I think it was about 8 months. I was up to 50 smokes a day, smoking like on the glass Barbie, crack pipe, and I was pretty much dragging my wife into that scene as well. So, yeah, at that point, I decided that if no one else is going to do it for me, I've got to make a decision. Otherwise, we're going to end up like half the first at the moment, and not have anything. So that was my turning point. Went from there. Still had it like later on. Still had issues with alcohol and stuff like that, but that's where I started building back up from the bottom. I remember at one point I didn't even have enough money to get from a job site. Like had no fuel in the tank. Was relying on my brother to give me some money for fuel, and he didn't have any money, so I had to reach out to my old boy, which at the time I was on bad terms with, and I was like, I don't want to ever be in this position again. So yeah, that's where I stand there with that. And it's been a long process, but now at the age that I am now, it's like I don't want to be a part of that scene. Every time I go to have a beer now, like even having a beer, I don't really want it afterwards. So like I'm at that point where I'm able to say, no, don't bother having it in the first place, So that's my story. There's a lot more, I could write probably 10 books on my family, but that's the gist of it.
Yeah, I never got too much into anything else. I appreciate you sharing the story there. Like the weed thing for me that I shared in the other chat was I was working on a feedlot out the back of nowhere, Comet near Emerald out the back in Queensland, and just getting some cash together to try and go back to Latin America, live in Mexico again, find a way to stay out of the rat race. And there was a Brazilian there who he was driving the trucks, cleaning up the shit. He was better than me on the machines, but he loved his weed and he wanted someone to smoke with. So he'd go drive to the Gold Coast, like 30-hour round trips or something it was, to pick up his high quality hydroponic. And then I was smoking with him just because he wanted someone else to smoke with, and there was nothing to do out there. It was like a dead end place. I was at a bit of a dead end spot in life, really. Just wanted to get some money to go back to Latin America, which is probably how a lot of FIFO workers kind of feel, of like, well, just get money and I don't know what I'm doing. So I get it that men feel like that. And then I would say there's a better way. I was looking for the better way in Latin America, trying to find a community that I felt like I could be a part of, or a culture or a project, something of meaning. And I couldn't really find it. And so, eventually just went back to footy, but I always sort of wanted to do something different, something better. And, now that with Uncommon Success, that's really what I'm doing. Like Real Movement was a step towards it with coaching coaches and running training camps. But I really love this now. And the goal is that it is better than those drugs. Like that's the goal, is that it's something that replaces it. I think the way Jordan Peterson puts it of, alcohol is a hell of a drug. If you want to get it out of your life, like you have to have something better. And I see you doing better things, man. Like I love the art that you're putting together each day. I see you taking pride in your movement. I see you taking pride in your BJJ. I'd love to hear, like, is that kind of what's displacing it for you, or having conversations with other guys that are choosing things, or like what's bringing on this conversation that you want to sort of face it and maybe make the decision to be someone who doesn't drink for a period of time?
Yeah, I think it's like, with, even when you look into, the spiral dynamics and all that sort of thing with psychology, it's like, it's cumulative and it takes time. It's like, all of these things are what I wanted, but you can't just magically make it happen. It has to be those daily reps. For me, I'm a slow learner in a lot of ways, but also a fast learner in other ways. So, like, my wife gets frustrated a lot of the time, with a lot of things, but you just got to have that daily action, and that's where it comes from. It's like, it's this exponential movement. Same within crypto or real estate or markets. There's this bear market to begin with, and then there's just out of nowhere you get this spike and exponential movement, and that's sort of what has happened with calls. I had 2 calls or 3 calls from when I joined it in the end of December up until April. And then I had 5 calls, with 30 calls, 33. Each month went up. This month I've dropped back a bit because that energy has gone into other things. But the movement as a whole has been exponential. So the calls are definitely huge. It's what keeps the energy flowing.
Yeah, the spiral dynamic that you're talking about is the Claire Graves model. Claire Graves was a psychologist. He was actually a superior in academics to Maslow with his hierarchy of needs, which is much more well known. But in the spiral dynamics model, it's the environment that creates the development, and its levels of human development is his model. And you go through the levels of human development based on the environmental conditions that you put in. So the environmental conditions of Uncommon Success are where you're expected to go to Mars. You're expected to mastermind to Athletic Richer Sparta. So you're expected to improve yourself athletically, and there's a clear record of whether you're improving or not. If you're training, then it's going to be improving with juggling, with handstands, with mobility, all these areas, strength as well. It's very honest to, are you actually doing anything? And so you can see it with the athletic, and then if you're doing it with the athletic, it's the same with the richer stuff. Like if you're consistently doing podcasts, if you're consistently putting out emails, if you're consistently creating something, then you're getting closer to where you want to go. But the environment is demanding that of you, like that discomfort of even you probably wouldn't have seen yourself on a podcast like this or a call like this, 2 years ago. And most men probably can't imagine that they would, but then it actually is something that anyone could start. And then once you start it, then you gradually have more and more conversations, and you have conversations with people that you respect more and more. And then you become like those people. Like it's literally changing the environment. I've seen, I don't take credit for, the things that I've done, the money that I've been able to make, the work that I've done with the athletes. It's like you put yourself in that environment. If you can continue to put yourself in the environment, then you'll change. When I lived in France and I couldn't be around top quality strength coaches, it was like, I'm going to listen to as much Paul Chek and Charles Poliquin and, other voices, Bruce Lipton. I listened to a lot of DeMartini. I was reading his books. Like I imposed the environment on myself to be able to get the progression, because I couldn't find people around me who were interested in the same sort of stuff, other than Clint Greenshields, who was a fullback there. And we had really interesting conversations. But, for the most part, it really is like, if I'm in a shitty environment, when I was in a shitty environment, like I was a loser. I was someone that I'm not proud of, that I wouldn't want my children to know in those times. And the reason I'm able to be a better man now, like I was talking to a man today, a Swedish guy who's got a really good business, done really well in e-commerce, super smart, well connected. And he's like, yeah, like sometimes I get down. I'm just like 3 or 4 days, I don't train, I don't do anything. He's like, do you get that? And I was like, I used to. I don't do it anymore because I tend to get on a call, or I have a training session, or I have something that sparks me. It's mostly the calls. Like I have calls pretty much every day. And I just don't get in that funk anymore. And I stopped fighting with my wife was another key thing that I spoke to him about. And I talked to him a little bit about how things changed with that, what my paradigm shift was, what I learned. But yeah, it's literally the environment, man. Like it's simple. It's like I don't take credit for it. All I'm doing is sculpting the best environment that I can imagine. You can see like the discipline action blocks, the new addition that we have here. It's all just thinking about how do we do this better? Like what's missing in a great life? Eventually it has to come to villages. Like that's why we're doing the villages. Like you can only get to the best situation through more face-to-face contact with other people who are going in this direction. But it's a big project to build the physical locations, and also to have the culture of, you know, men and their families that want to be in those types of locations. And, you know, maybe the world has to change considerably more towards smart cities, concentration camps, you know, for people to want to actually move out of their current circumstances. You know, it's a lot worse than it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago, but still it's not enough for most to seriously consider changing their paths. So more than ever I think there's 2 million people moved out of Germany. You're not allowed to advertise to Germans about moving abroad anymore. Like they made laws against it where you have to get approval, blah, 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 to be able to advertise, because too many are leaving because it's just the deal isn't good anymore. And they're just bringing in different people to live there and get rid of the ones that, you know, built the place. And it's a funny time that we're in, but what's the answer? Like hard times make strong men. We have to impose the harder times on ourselves, like put pressure on yourself that you have to come up with a business, that you have to develop your body, and then you won't have time for the alcohol. Like I don't have time for a hangover. I don't have time to piss around with the day. Like I literally can't remember the last time I lost half a day. Like I can't afford that. Like it's not an option. But if you don't put that pressure on yourself of creating a solution and building something important, that's the goal. Is like everyone should feel like that. Everyone should be their own hero, building something important, and you just got a mad support crew around you, so you're not on your own. Because if you're on your own, it's easy to miss days because no one gives a shit. But if there's a bunch of other people that are expecting you to do something, you're going to miss a little less. Just like going to BJJ. If the guys are expecting you to turn up, you're going to turn up. If you go to footy training and you know footy training, you play first grade, you're not going to miss footy training because everyone thinks you're a dickhead. If you keep missing footy training, you don't get to play anymore. So that's the environment that we need to create for all the men who want it. I believe, like to me, that's the thing with all these drugs and alcohol. And there've been quite a few over the time, guys who've had serious issues with it, and there's a few others who've been talking about it. But yeah, I sort of assume I don't talk about it. Like you don't end the darkness by cursing it. You know, it's just you need to bring in the light. So I don't talk about it very much because I assume that it's gonna, like, our system will displace it. But it's good. Like I'm glad you brought it up, and it's good for me to sort of share. Like, hey, I'm not perfect. Like this has been part of my life as well, and I get it. But there's a better way, and if you find a life that you love more, then you do that more. Like Poliquin says that discipline is a myth. It's just, what do you love most? Like I love feeling good, being productive, training, getting out in the sun. You know, that's what I love much more than getting a hangover and smashing a bunch of beers. But if people want to do it from time to time as part of their lifestyle, as long as you're proud of yourself, as long as you're living a good life, I think alcohol can be a part of that. I honestly do. Like it's not that it needs to not be there. It's if you're not proud of it and you're drinking yourself to stupidity and you're splitting your head open, or you getting yourself in trouble, then maybe not a good idea.
Oh. At the end of the day, it's just another tool like anything else. And it's like Rogan said, it's like you can either use that tool to hit the nail in, or you can smash yourself in the dick with it. So, it's like anything else, it's what you use it for.
Yeah, just got a visitor here. I had to go and open the door. But yeah, that's good chat, man. And I think you'll open up a few other discussions. I'm sure there'll be some other players who want to discuss this as well. And I appreciate you bringing it to the front, and this will be something that we can share with others who may be having this issue, thinking about it. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's something to consider of what do you really want? What's best for you? If you keep moving, doing what you think is best, then you'll be good. If you think training is good for you, if you think building business is good for you, then do what you think is good. Appreciate the chance to have a chat, and enjoy the travels. Be following the journey. We'll speak soon.
No worries. We'll see you around the block.
Champion.
Hey, Anthony,
Hey,
I
Yeah,
saw
I'll-
your invitation to the alcohol chat. I don't have a lot of experience with it, but I'd be keen to listen and hear what people have to say, and maybe if I have anything to offer, share it.
yeah, I just did a live with Keegan. I think he's gonna post that out.
Oh, perfect. Okay, I'll check it out.
So, but yeah, I haven't got time right now. But yeah, we'll do